Hey cousins, happy Tuesday. It feels so good to be once again live, truly live with you all again. And you know, we got to get into some things. And with it being Pride Month, especially with me living in the Hollywood area, I think it's worth looking back at one of the most prolific characters of the last election cycle, the infamous LGBT icon who broke the internet multiple times. And no, I'm not talking about Barack Obama. I'm talking about Dylan Mulvaney. For the purpose of not being demonetized, I will be using preferred pronouns, so please don't come for me. But for those who may not remember, Dylan Mulvaney became a trans icon and activist seemingly overnight due to their Days of Being a Girl series. I don't know if I've ever seen someone become so quickly overexposed, but in retrospect, I genuinely wonder, was Dylan Mulvaney as problematic as the right made it seem, or were we too harsh? And how did Dylan impact the trans movement? How about corporate America? Politics, the election, feminism? Well, enough time has passed for us to take a step back and re-examine. Y'all know the vibes. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Welcome to Respectfully. So, Dylan Mulvaney. And be sure, you guys, to send in your super chats if you guys want to be a part of the conversation, especially over on my personal YouTube. That is where we are checking the most. And if you have not already, be sure to subscribe to PragerU.com. There is a link in the description so you can get all types of educational and entertaining content. I 10 out of 10 recommend, and I'm not just being biased. So let's talk about Dylan Mulvaney. So if you don't remember, Dylan Mulvaney is this 28-year-old American transgender actress and TikTok influencer who really rose to fame with the Days of Girlhood series, documenting their gender transition. So this whole transition series became such a huge thing that it even led to Dylan meeting. Now, y'all are wrong for that photo. Mr. Rodriguez and Will Murphy, what are y'all doing back there?
You know exactly what we're doing right here.
That is crazy. So that being said, I can't. So Dylan Mulvaney reached such a level of stardom that they even met with President Biden back in 2022 to discuss trans issues, which was one of those moments of realizing, oh, our country is actually doomed. Because could you imagine George Bush sitting down with actually, I could. No shade, I could. But sitting down with this interesting character. And again, I'm being very careful when I talk about Dylan because YouTube is very, very sensitive when it comes to Dylan Mulvaney. YouTube does not play when it comes to Dylan Mulvaney, so I'm not going to do too much. But y'all know what I want to say when I don't say it. But this profound level of fame, I think, is something that's 100% worth examining because, first of all, Dylan Mulvaney acquired over 10 million followers in such a short period of time. And not only does Dylan have the followers of fame, but was sitting down with so many of our cultural icons. Like, so many of us remember when Dylan sat down with Drew Barrymore on the Drew Barrymore show, and who could ever forget this bizarre interaction of them just absolutely gawking over each other. Drew Barrymore literally being on her knees for this. Oh, I'm gonna have to catch myself so many times in this episode, but here they are on the floor, just like Drew's ratings. So this was a moment. Also sitting with Lady Gaga. This recently just happened. And we can mute the mic because mute the sound because I really don't care to know what they're talking about. I just find it really ironic that we're constantly being told that we need more trans visibility, yet all we do is see transgenders, as if gender dysphoria is even something that is this common for us to constantly be seeing it. But here we see Lady Gaga, one of the biggest pop stars of all time, sitting there with Dylan Mulvaney. And this is, again, the level of stardom that Dylan has reached. And just to show you even more, Dylan has also worked with Nike. Okay, it is very difficult to get a Nike ambassadorship, and yet here we are. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. I don't need the sound. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. But I'm making sure y'all see, because I want to make sure that y'all really get the picture of this Irish jigging transgender tranny-licious diva that we're talking about today. And Dylan has even worked with literally one of the most elite brands ever, Versace. Do you know how difficult it is to get a deal with Versace? There are A-list celebrities that are so desperately trying to work with the Versace brand. And here we have Dylan in this, not gonna lie, pretty tasteful dress. Dylan Mulvaney, if I can give Dylan one thing, the looks always are given, okay? But here we have Dylan Mulvaney wearing a Versace dress that if it looks iconic to you, it's because it is. And just so you guys know the extent of that Versace dress, do you know who else wore that exact same Versace dress? Lean in. Lean in. Melania Trump. Melania Trump. In that exact same look. Melania Trump, my first lady, my iconic first lady, wearing that same dress 6 months ago. How insane is that? For Dylan Mulvaney to be having this brand deal, to be repping the same dress as my first lady, your first lady, all of your first lady, Melania Trump. Crazy, crazy. And now just to get into the video content, because, you know, I really want you guys to see, again, the full picture as we get this background on Dylan. Just as a reminder, and for some of you who fortunately were not on the internet during this era or not paying attention, just how viral Dylan Mulvaney is. This video that I'm about to show you has 5 million likes, not views. 5 million likes on this one video on TikTok, and it really paints the picture of who Dylan Mulvaney is.
I really didn't want to make this video because I feel embarrassed, but I'm just gonna do it. Day 17 of being a girl, and I am the bearded lady. Ah! I got laser hair removal last week, and I am now not allowed to shave for 7 days. And it's been torturous to look at myself in the mirror and see somebody that I don't want to be or look like. And when I decided to make this video series, I was like, Dylan, we're going to show the good and the bad. And this is one of the bad days for me. And I've been kind of hiding out in my house for the last few days. But tonight, I'm going to go see a play. I put my Princess Diana sweater on, and I'm going to wear my mask. And for trans people, these masks can be little safety blankets at times, especially when I've got my facial hair. So there's one good thing to come from the pandemic, but I just have to trust the process that it's all going to be worth it and that I am going to look like I want to one day. And I love you. Bye.
Whew, that's Dylan right there. That is a cultural icon. That is the type of content that apparently was so iconic that it was worthy to sit down with our president of the United States to talk about civil rights. And now you have Dylan, and I hadn't heard about Dylan in a while, and Dylan had been someone that had totally left my mind for quite some time, probably left your mind. But again, I think it's worth looking back on, especially since it is Pride Month after all. And the most recent video that I recall seeing of Dylan was Dylan actually talking about moving over to the UK. Do we have that clip of what Dylan had to say?
I'm trying to move here permanent. There's something about being here that makes me feel like the people have been so kind. And the theater culture is amazing. And Percy Pigs are my favorite. So honestly, that makes the move worth it.
I just find that really ironic because over in the UK, they are this close to Sharia law. We talked about on a recent episode how the Islamic population is rapidly growing over in the UK, and even one of the most popular, at sometimes the most popular baby boy name over there is Muhammad, and that's where you want to go? You want to go where there's this massive growing population of Islam. And I mean, the laws are low-key reflecting it because it recently just became into law too that they have declared that the term sex is referring exclusively to your sex type, like what you were born with. It's referring to what you actually are in your biological state, not just your gender identity. So it bars trans women from being able to be in women's sports, for example, because it goes off of, yeah, you can identify as what you want to socially for now until Sharia law takes place. But in general, you are having to abide by the laws of nature. All shade, all tea, and all offense. But that being said, that's what's happening over in the UK, but that's where Dylan says that Dylan wants to go. And just to show again how Dylan is so unaware of their own privilege and their own situation that they're in, wanting to go and be in somewhere that is so close to just developing Sharia law, this is what Dylan had to say about Gaza.
In ignorance to do something of better use by using my cameo to raise money for Save the Children, which is an organization that currently has operations set up in Gaza to help provide emergency services to innocent lives. And 100% of my Cameo profits for the next month will be donated to Save the Children. There is a link in my bio. Please consider donating. And I should have said this sooner, but I also want to take this as an opportunity to use my platform to call for a permanent ceasefire now. Thank you so much, and I love you.
Dylan, over in Gaza, it's one thing for them to not like gay people. I wish a transgender would go over to Gaza and see the way that they were treated. Okay, Hamas would have a field day with you because, first of all, if they do fall for, you know, all the glam and the surgeries that you have, when they get to where they want to be, oh, that's going to be more than a beheading. Okay. So again, and when I say that, I don't actually want trans people to go there because I don't want to see a transgender person get hurt. I just want them to be aware that as you support Hamas, because that's really what you're supporting, a ceasefire does nothing but give Hamas the time and the resources to get themselves back together and come try to take out all of Western society. That negatively affects you, Dylan. Okay, Dylan is also just one of those people out here calling for censorship of people who misgender them. And it's so funny because you would think that you would really think that a trans activist like Dylan Mulvaney would understand the importance of freedom of speech, because while you find being misgendered so deeply offensive, a lot of people find what you do, Dylan, deeply offensive, but you still have the right to do what you want to do. You still have the right to utilize your platform to speak about whatever BS it is that you want to talk about that day. But if we were to all call for you to be censored, then we would be the villain. We'd be too conservative. But here you are acting like a fascist, telling people that they need to call you certain pronouns. But now that we have some background on Dylan Mulvaney, I really want to get into just examining each of these different elements of Dylan Mulvaney, the woman of the century. Okay. So if you don't remember, and maybe some of you remember, but I don't think you really remember how bad the Days of Girlhood series actually was, we just got to start with day one.
Day one of being...
Can you run that back over the sound?
I wrote a scathing email that I did not send. I ordered dresses online.
Can we start that from the top?
Day one of being a girl, and I have already cried 3 times. I wrote a scathing email that I did not send. I ordered dresses online that I couldn't afford. And then when someone asked me how I was, I said, I'm fine, when I wasn't fine. So. How'd I do, ladies? Good? Girl power.
See, I remember when this first started, and you could not have convinced me that that wasn't the nastiest read and roast of women. Like, that was such a slap in the face of women. I already my first day as a woman, and I cried 3 times today, and I typed a bunch of emails that I can't send. It's like the disrespect to women everywhere with that statement. Okay, just like the slap in the face of feminism. Like, you're sitting here, what they just said is that women are over emotional. They just said that women can't, make up their minds, that they crash out basically, and that they don't stand on business. Lord, YouTube, I'm sorry, don't demonetize me. I'm trying. What Dylan just sat there and basically did was make a whole mockery of womanhood and just played in all of females' faces with that whole little charade there. You could not have convinced me at the time that that wasn't satire, but Dylan was dead serious. That's the idea of what a woman is to someone like Dylan Mulvaney. And it just progressively got worse. Like, as the series went on, each of the videos just became more and more insulting to women and to everything that actual feminists stand for, and all the different negative tropes and stereotypes that are put onto women that make them caricatures of women. That is what Dylan Mulvaney was doing. And, let's play this one. Day 66.
Being a girl, and today I'm in nature. Trees, I love them. Water, lakes, I love them. Heels, they're my hiking heels. I love them. Okay, come on.
Ew. Literally yuck. What was that noise?
Coconut water, love it. Not an ad, just love it. Wind turbine, love it. Meadows, love them. I'm scared of getting Lyme disease.
T.
Love ya. you see that? I gotta get out of here. Did you see that?
There's a dragon.
Oh my god. Never again. Get me out of here. Love ya.
Sorry, I had to talk to God real quick before I started making statements. You know, day 66 was crazy. And the days just kept going on. Like, I don't know if Dylan is still doing the series, but I know it went up to like at least 1,000. Like, it was literally the wildest fiasco that blew up seemingly overnight. And, you know, for a long time, I hated the statement that this was blackface. Like that this was the equivalent of blackface, but cosplaying womanhood. But as I look back on that expression, it's kind of tea. Like, that was a caricature that was made for the purpose of mocking women, at least from what it seems like visually. Like, this doesn't seem like somebody with gender dysphoria. This seems like somebody that has a very, dare I say, fetishized perspective of what womanhood is, and went out there and cosplayed it. And, you know, how insulting was that? You know, in retrospect, when you think about the impact that had on feminism, it just made feminism just look even less credible. Okay. And then you have this Woman of the Year award. And if we could just play a small part of this, because Dylan received Woman of the Year within like their first year of making this whole spectacle happen, and got on stage and just decided to preach about being a victim.
The Woman of the Year award, supported by Virgin Atlantic, goes to Dylan Mulvaney.
Hello, London! Some see me as the Woman of the Year. Some see me as a woman of a year and some change, as I only publicly came out online 560 days ago. And some people don't see me as a woman at all. I know, no matter how hard I try, or what I wear, or what I say, or what surgeries I get, I will never reach an acceptable version of womanhood by those hateful people's standards. But as long as I have the queer community that sees me for my truth, I'm gonna be okay. Maybe it's less about
That's
where
enough.
we are.
I can't. And I still don't even understand what queer actually means, because I've always thought that was an insult, but apparently it's like an identity now. Like, I really just don't get it. But, you know, this was the type of mental gymnastics we had to go through for many, many years while all this was going on. Now, as we get into the impact that this has had, you know, just on everything, we can't go too far without talking about the impact that this all had on corporate America and what Dylan Mulvaney represented for corporate America. So if you guys remember the notorious ad that Dylan Mulvaney did for Bud Light.
Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light and maybe win some money too. Love ya.
Okay, that's enough. Okay, so here's the thing. Now, you know I don't like that sound. I thought someone was hollering in my ear. So here's the thing. I understand that the transgender identity is going to exist. And as somebody who is trying their best to be more accepting and trying to understand, like, there are certain people that just want to live their life. And as an American, I want you to live your life. You know what? That is one of the catch-22s about living in a free country. I can't sit here and say that I don't support freedom without saying that I don't support people being able to do what they want to do. But there is just a level of objectivity where that was one of the wildest, most illogical marketing campaigns anyone possibly could have done. So Bud Light, which was the most popular beer brand at the time and for many, many years, decided to have this trans woman represent their company, put their face on the beer. Like, how masculine and tough do you feel like drinking a beer can with Dylan Mulvaney on the can? It's like, what happened to like hot women and you know, like what happened to just old school American values of what we would see on a beer can? But Dylan was put on the beer can, and if you guys don't remember, the impact was wild, honestly profound. So Bud Light sales dropped up to 26% in most months following the campaign, with their peak decline hitting almost 30% drop, which is insane especially for a company of that size to drop 30%. Anheuser-Busch, which is their parent company, lost $1.4 billion in North American revenue. And the market share, Bud Light fell from America's top-selling beer to third place by July of 2024. So then you look also as Anheuser-Busch's InBev stock fell 20% in May of 2023, earning bear stock status in the U.S. The revenue dropped 10.5% in Q2. Like, it just continues to plummet down the drain. And if you're wondering if anybody got fired, oh yes, people lost their job, bills were affected. You had 2 marketing executives from Bud Light who were placed on leave, and the company laid off 380 U.S. corporate staff, which was 2% of their entire workforce, which again, for a company of that size, like, that's pretty significant. And it all got even worse when the CEO put out this super vague statement that really just pissed off everybody. I don't think I've ever seen a company shoot themselves in both feet quite like Bud Light did in this situation. You would think when you have like this massive scandal that they would have some type of real PR coming through to figure out what to say about this matter. But the CEO of Bud Light said, "We never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. We are," and first of all, before I even keep going, that is just so ignorant. Like, you knew what you were doing when you put a don't know if I can say almost went there. I'm not getting demonetized today. You knew what you were doing when you put Dylan Mulvaney on the can. Dylan Mulvaney was already mad controversial at that time, so they knew what they were doing. They were trying to get those extra woke brownie points, but it did not work. Anyway, the CEO said, "We are in the business of bringing people together over a beer. And I am responsible for ensuring every customer feels proud of the beer we brew. We're honored. Sorry, I don't got my eyes on right now. I'm trying to read this. We're honored to be a part of the fabric of the country. We have thousands of partners, millions of fans, and a proud history supporting our communities, military, first responders, sports fans, and hardworking Americans everywhere." So basically, that whole statement was giving unity and patriotism. Like, they were trying to like kind of rehash and be like, hey, like, we're still patriotic. We're still like this rugged brand that's so pro-America. But then at the same time, it's like, that doesn't appease anybody, because now you have the progressives who are mad that you didn't stand by Dylan. Okay. Because if I were Dylan, I would have been livid, to be honest. In fairness, I would have been irate if I were Dylan, because it's like, you just made me go through hell and have this scandal of the year and didn't stand behind me. But at least Dylan got a bag out of it, hopefully. But then you had conservatives who were mad because it's like, no, you should have put out a whole apology. You should have put an apology out there before making your company not only political, but politically ostracizing in such a way. So they failed to support Dylan, failed to apologize, and ultimately just took an overall L that just led to them being boycotted by both sides of the argument. And the lasting damage is still there. Sales are still down almost 30%, at least as of 2024. And I don't see it recovering. I have a lot of friends who drink a lot of beer, and I have yet to see one of my friends drinking Bud Light ever since. And this really hurt me personally, because hot take, because a lot of people when this whole scandal happened was like, Bud Light was always gay. Bud Light was always weak. Bud Light was always a terrible beer. No, it wasn't. Y'all are going to stop lying, because Bud Light Platinum was my jig. I did not play about the Bud Light Platinums back when I don't really drink beer like that because beer makes me bloated and I always have a stomach ache. Just ask Mr. Rodriguez. My stomach always hurts. So he knows I ain't lying. But Bud Light Platinum was fire. And this is not an ad. This is actually the opposite of an ad. I'm telling you, don't ever try it because it's not worth it. Okay. First of all, some of y'all don't have the body type to even be drinking beer in the first place. You really need to eat less and drink healthy, drink more water, because some of y'all are already looking beer bellied in the first place. No shade. But that being said, this is not an ad for Bud Light Platinum, as I'm sitting here roasting my cousins unprovoked. But again, re-examining that, it really just shows that we had a real shift in corporate America beginning at that era. Because beginning at that era, people started to realize go woke, go broke is not just it's not just a figure of speech. It was a very real thing, and it has become a truly real thing, which now we're seeing post-election. I am baffled to say this, but even Target stopped spreading the rainbow. Okay, this was going viral all over Twitter, showing Target last year, and I haven't went and tried out any of the LA Targets, because I'm sure LA Target, if there's going to be any Target that's still woke, it's going to be here in Los Angeles, WeHo area. But nationally, a lot of people were saying they went to Target and they didn't see all the pride stuff, all the kids' pride stuff that they were accustomed to seeing the last 4 years. You remember all the different like rainbow and pride and trans joy onesies, even like literal babies wearing LGBT propaganda merch. Like that is not happening anymore. We are now seeing that even Target, even as woke as Target had become, which so many people started boycotting Target, they are out here putting pro-America stuff out. They're putting out patriotism. They're getting ready for 4th of July. It's almost like these companies are finally learning their lessons. It took many, many years. It took a Dylan Mulvaney. It took the backlash of Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney for this industrial revolution to happen. And, you know, what shocks me even more is June 1st. It's always like clockwork because it's always funny to see the memes on the last day of June or the first day of July when all the companies go back, which the Middle Eastern companies never switched over in the first place. But even this year, I have barely seen any Pride Month logos. Okay, if we can pull that up. And I don't know if this has changed since, but this was going viral everywhere. All the major corporations, for the most part, they haven't changed their logos. They haven't done this performative, corny activism. And I'm not saying that this isn't like this whole tirade of being anti-LGBT. It's not that at all. It's a whole thing of like, can the performative activism stop? Because I feel like we were really reaching a point as a country where people were very tolerant. People were very accepting of all creeds, all demographics. Nobody really cares about your sexuality these days. Like for the most part, most people do not care. Okay. It's just like, you go live your life, you do your thing. Nobody cares. Even when it came to transgenderism, it wasn't even being hyperfixated on the way that it was until things got so woke. So to see that corporations are just like, okay, it's June 1st, it's just another month. Bravo. Bravo. I feel like you cause way less division when you do that. And partially, ironically, we can thank Dylan Mulvaney for that. If it wasn't for Dylan Mulvaney and the failed Bud Light partnership, I don't think companies would be as hesitant to, you know, I don't think companies would be as hesitant to go and do this performative activism as they are now, which is a good thing. Okay. And then even when you just talk about the transgender movement, I think that the whole thing with Dylan Mulvaney kind of highlights this fetishism in a way that is pretty alarming. Okay. When you look at someone like Dylan Mulvaney, you can't help but question, is this just fetishism? Because there is a real thing of gender dysphoria, okay, which we've talked about. Like, you know, gender dysphoria is a real mental disorder that has to do with people feeling like they are in the wrong bodies. But there's also this hypersexualized, like this sexually charged thing that people do where they decide to cosplay as the other gender and then it becomes a whole personality trait. Like, for example, Leah Thomas. Okay, I don't know if Paula Scanlon has told this story. Shout out to Paula Scanlon. You know, I've mentioned her many of times. She's a good friend of mine. She actually was teammates with the notorious Leah Thomas, you know, the swimmer that went up against Riley Gaines and they had the whole situation that went down. But the tea on Leah Thomas, allegedly, according to Paula, Paula Scanlon was the initial whistleblower on all things Leah Thomas. She was the initial person. She was in the What is a Woman documentary. She has been telling this story, and she almost got kicked out of her university for her Ivy League university for it. She talks very extensively about how Leah, in the early days of transitioning, which happened before the pandemic, just so you know how long that had been going on, talked about how Leah Thomas's girlfriend at the time was actually, how does this go? So Leah is now the girl, and Leah's boyfriend is actually a trans male. So Leah's boyfriend is actually a biological female while Leah is a biological male. And their entire transition allegedly started because they had this sexual kink for role play and switching, you know, roles and positions in the dynamic of the relationship, and particularly in sex. This is why I say so many of our problems in our society come from pornography. So when it's all said and done, it's like, that is a fetish. that is a fetish that you are now living out in your day-to-day life. If what Paula is saying is true, which she's never had a reason to lie. She had nothing to lose. Or no, she had everything, literally everything to lose. Ivy League, athlete, good grades, great family, all that, had everything to lose, and she still had the audacity to speak out. And she really almost lost everything until people finally started catching wind of this story. So that is what I'm talking about. A lot of this trans representation is now being hijacked by people who are just sexually fetishizing the idea of cosplaying the other gender. And when I say cosplay, I'm very particular in that term because you have someone like Dylan Mulvaney who is very excessively calling themselves a girl or a little girl on top of that at times. It's one thing for Dylan to go out and say like, oh, I'm a woman now, but to go and say that you're a girl and cosplaying being a little girl, for example, here's a clip.
I am Eloise. I am 6. I'm a city child. I live at the Plaza Hotel, which is huge and wonderful and très elegant, especially at Christmas time.
That made me want to sip bleach. But that's gross. That's actually gross. Like, are we, like, that is so, like, to me, it's giving PDF file illic. You know, y'all, again, I'm on YouTube. I'm doing my best to not get demonetized. I need my coins. But is that not creepy? And I've said this before time and time again. I actually wanted to write an op-ed about it, but it freaked me out too much, so I stopped writing it. But fighting PDF files continues to be arguably the biggest struggle and needing to be the biggest priority in our country that not enough people realize. And, you know, pornography is a big part of that. You know, when like it's PragerU. Let me keep it PG. But all that to say, there is way too much of this type of dynamic of people cosplaying little kids that happens in this world of fetishism. I'll just put it that way. And seeing Dylan not only being a trans girl or trans woman, but to cosplay being a little girl and like acting like a 12-year-old, that's very weird. That's very fetishy. It's scary and alarming to me. And someone did call Dylan out on it. And this was Dylan's explanation of why they refer to themselves as a girl and not a woman.
Day 8 of being a girl, and I've gotten some messages that are saying that I need to be calling myself a woman and not a girl. And I didn't even know that some women were offended by being called girls, so that's really good to know. But for me, the word girl feels great because I never got to be one growing up. And it feels very able to make mistakes and growing and changing and evolving, whereas the word woman feels very strong and confident and powerful, and that still intimidates me a little bit. So I'm gonna keep calling myself a girl. Hope that's okay. Love ya.
I cannot get demonetized. Oh, Lord, I have so much to say. I might have to make a Patreon and start saying what I really got to say about this. But crazy. Like, put the little girl in a straitjacket, crazy. And again, this is just decaying the credibility of the transgender movement. Because you had people like, I remember growing up seeing people like Laverne Cox and Chaz Bono, for example. And these were trans people that when I was a kid, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That was that was the first time I had really heard of it. Also, like Jazz Jennings is out there. But Laverne Cox, I don't really hear Laverne talk about being transgender that often. Laverne Cox is actually a really talented actress. So it's like that was the direction that things were going. Chaz Bono, again, people often talked about Chaz Bono just like, oh yeah, that's Cher's son. Like nobody really cared that much. If anything, people were fascinated, but it wasn't this like fixation of all of our society of people trying to figure out what is going on here. And these people had some credibility, to be honest. To this day, I don't think, I haven't really kept up with their careers, but to this day, I don't think that they do anything over the top when it comes to their trans activism. They're just living their lives. They're just people who are chilling. They're just people who are living their life and identifying the way that they want to. And honestly, I have some respect for that. To an extent, like I do have some respect for that. If you are, like they seem genuinely happy and like they're doing the thing, they're not making a whole spectacle of it. They seem like they're minding their business is what I'm trying to say. Laverne Cox, Chaz Bono, minding their own business. So nobody is really coming for them. Nobody's really checking them. But when you have someone like Dylan Mulvaney who has been wildly overexposed and doing these type of things, it really makes the trans movement look a little crazy. It makes them look less credible, and it's really damaging to the LGBT community. And I'm surprised that it's taken so long for the LGBT community to speak up and talk about like, hey, like, you are harming us over here. And, you know, I'm surprised that more people aren't, you know, actually, you know what? Shout out to Amir Odom. Because Amir Odom actually just made a video about this. And he's a prime example of somebody in the LGBT community that has been very vocal about how much this is damaging their credibility. And Lily Tino, is that the name? Lily Tino? Lily Tino is another one of these trans TikTokers that has been way overexposed. You cannot open your app without seeing Lily Tino. And just a few days ago, actually, Amir made this really strong video about why Lily Tino gets so much hate. And it's beyond just being transgender. It has to do with just the pretentiousness and the over emotionalness and just like all the different delusions that gets put out there that is completely making their community lose credibility. So it's like, it's just corny. It's corny, it's sad, it's tired, it's late, it's played out. And again, I just feel bad for the people that are like Laverne Cox and Chaz Bono who didn't want anything to do with this modern wave of trans TikTokers that's going on. So again, shout out to Amir. Make sure you go look at his content. He's exploding all over YouTube. You probably saw him before you saw me, Chad. So when we talk about the whole movement that's happening, it also just makes, you know, the mental health element of it very unserious. And when I say mental illness and mental disorder, I don't even necessarily mean that as an insult, because I feel like there's way too much stigma that is put on having mental illness or mental disorder. Like I've told y'all, I have generalized anxiety disorder. That's technically a mental disorder. I've had seasonal depression. I've dealt with that. I've been diagnosed with PTSD twice. I've been through it, child. But you know what? I get up and I go to work and I have worked on it. I didn't have my anxiety confirmed. Okay, my anxiety attacks don't really come in panic attacks. They more come in like this wave of extreme paranoia. But you know what I've done? I've worked through it. I worked through it very young in my life. I started going to therapy, getting, you know, I tried medicine. It wasn't really a good thing for me. But I'm being vulnerable and honest about it because this is something that needs to be talked about, because there should not be stigma just on the title of mental disorder. But we also shouldn't be affirming things that are a disorder. You should be doing what you have to do to try to care for it and treat it in a way that actually tries to bring some resolution to the problem. But we don't have the real conversations about gender dysphoria that we should be having. And whether or not you believe in the legality of adults transitioning, I personally, am I a fan of it? No, especially as a Christian, like I'm not a fan of it, but I am okay, for lack of a better term, I am okay with the legality of it because we are a free country and I don't want to be a hypocrite and impeding on people's rights as long as you are an adult. I don't think it's healthy, but I think if that's what you're going to do as an adult, my personal opinion, you do your thing. But we have to have real conversations about what is gender dysphoria and what is a fetish. Okay, people with real gender dysphoria, you don't see them out here talking about their facial hair. You don't see them out here calling themselves bearded ladies. The last thing you will ever hear a real trans woman talk about if they have gender dysphoria, or if they have real gender dysphoria, is their bulge in their 5 o'clock shadow. But these are the types of things that you see these corny trans TikToker activists constantly talking about. And to me, it just looks attention seeking. It just looks very desperate for attention. And then when you look into the background of somebody like Dylan Mulvaney, and Dylan Mulvaney, again, taking up the spotlight that should be put on talking about mental health, it's instead just spotlight being put on Dylan. And this has been going on for Dylan's entire life, essentially. I mean, have you guys seen the viral video of Dylan before transitioning? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Let's play The Price is Right.
Get to spin the wheel.
Yeah, you get to spin the wheel, but guess what? You get a second chance in this game first.
No way. Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm still in it.
So you know 2 prices already, which is a great thing. $3.99 and $5.99. Which one do you want to keep?
I'm going to keep the $5.99.
Keep $5.99. Something else up here is $5.99. You can tell me what it is. You get.
Can we fast forward a little bit
I'm gonna
to the wildness? Yeah,
we're
this.
gonna spin the wheel right after this. Don't go away, folks.
Just doing. this diva. This is insane. Not gonna lie, Dylan's kind of eating the dance up, but this is ridiculous. You can tell Dylan's got a little bit of training, low key, but this is horrific. You know what? I'm not even gonna be a hater. You live your life, but don't ever try to beat. You will never, ever, 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 not on the witch's broom. You will never beat the attention-seeking allegations, but that's Dylan. That's just Dylan's personality. What I will at least give Dylan the credit for, because this is not just a whole video crapping all over Dylan. This is really trying to re-examine how Dylan had us twisted as a society versus what I actually can see as authentically Dylan. And Dylan's campy personality, this over-the-top extraness, and I actually know somebody who knew and grew up with Dylan, like has childhood photos with Dylan. This has always been Dylan's personality. So I will say that element of Dylan is actually them, but to act like that's what womanhood is, like, no, you're just extremely aggressively, flamboyantly, wildly gay. Like, that's just you doing you, Dylan. But don't try to put that onto womanhood or try to attribute that to even femininity. That is just flamboyance personified. So Dylan is just someone who's always wanted attention. Claims that they have a good relationship with their dad, I'm pretty sure, but you would think otherwise. No shade. I'm just saying, respectfully. But Dylan has said, Dylan, again, just being someone that really wants attention. Do you realize how many times Dylan has come out of the closet? It's giving Demi Lovato, and in the name of JoJo Siwa, who we should have talked about today too. We ain't got time for all that. But this clip of Dylan talking about their series of come outs was crazy.
So I recently told my parents that I may be a little bit romantically interested in women. And that was a
Ladies,
big shock
line
for them,
up.
considering the past 10 years of coming out as gay, then queer, then non-binary, then trans. And I think it was just a bit of a shock. So I tell my dad, and he goes, well, I would love to see you get a woman pregnant. And I said, oh, no. She would be getting me.
I cannot verbally express enough how much I don't want to understand what that last sentence meant, or just like even the dynamics of the biology there. But crazy. But ladies, line up. That is an eligible bachelorette. What do you call a they, them? Because Dylan does go by they. Bachelor them, bachelor X. Like, I literally can't. I actually cannot. But I mean, I just know their dad is tired, because Dylan is the slippery slope personified. Like, for real. It's very, very, very concerning. And again, just one more example of the attention seeking of it all. And just, again, skipping over the fact that we should be having a serious conversation about mental health. Here's Dylan.
Today wasn't supposed to be a crying day. Why do I always feel like crying? Why do I always feel like crying? Don't do it, Dylan. Don't you dare. No! I feel a little better.
Ciao. Anyway, so I don't know if it's because of all the estrogen in Dylan's system or if it's just all the Bud Light, but if that's exactly what trans joy looks like, I'm glad that Dylan is showing it. Because Dylan has been very vocal about wanting to show the good, bad, and the hideous of transitioning. And that video, especially from the perspective of a content creator who knows that nothing unless it's live is in one take. It's like, how many times did you just pull out your phone and performatively cry and sound like a llama, sounding like the llama from Emperor's New Groove, if you know, you know. But like, that was crazy. That was like some wild diabolical mess. But this is somebody who, again, has mental health struggles, has a desperate need for attention, and then has attributed all of that to womanhood and has been given an insanely large platform to display all of that and then have it shoved down our throats by the algorithm. And that's why we became the Confederate States of Mulvaney. Okay? Because everything that happened with Dylan in this era just had politics in flames for so long. Okay, because first of all, you had so many people questioning TikTok about how did this blow up so quickly? Because I'm telling you, you had to be there. Dylan blew up seemingly overnight. The second the Days of Girlhood series started, you could not get on that app without seeing Dylan Mulvaney. And the explosive nature of that rise really had people wondering, China, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing in Shanghai that has us seeing this all on our screens against our will? It didn't matter what your algorithm was showing you at the time, you saw Dylan Mulvaney. Okay, why is it being pushed? Is it for further demoralize our society? Is it to get more people to transition? Is it to get people to be unwell, to be meant to be more feminine? What is it? Like, what was the mission here? I think it's all of the above if it's negative. That is what China, I believe, was trying to do when it comes to the algorithm. Do I think TikTok should have been banned? No, I think we should be demanding more transparency about the algorithm because that was clearly an agenda afoot. Okay. And the fact that the left so desperately embraced Dylan and made Dylan become this star and made Dylan become so relevant in the world of politics that they sat down with Joe Biden, that was the type of stuff that made the left really lose credibility, even socially. Because I even know liberals and progressives that were really just like completely turned off by all things Dylan Mulvaney. But what I will say is it's kind of the right's fault. I'm not going to cap, and I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of it right now. I'm not a hypocrite. I will tell you straight up. We really are the reason why Dylan Mulvaney was as big of a star as Dylan was, kind of still is, but was. I know Dylan just launched like a podcast or something not that long ago. But, you know, the right overexposed Dylan Mulvaney. And understandably, I mean, when you go back and you look at all these videos, even years later, it's like it reminds you of how insane that era was where all we could possibly see on the internet was Dylan Mulvaney. But millions, hundreds of millions of impressions came directly from us. It came from all the major political commentators, all the major political organizations, myself personally. I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you. We overexposed Dylan Mulvaney because I remember there was even a point, there was like a turning point where Dylan truly became that popular because for so long I would ask my liberal friends, because I still have a lot of liberal and progressive friends, I would ask them what they thought of Dylan and they didn't even know who Dylan was. But every single person on the right did. And that told me a lot. That told me a lot about the dynamics of social media, of rage bait culture, of us just being enraged. And again, can you blame us? Can you blame us for being enraged? Can you blame us for being enraged when we see it all over our brands? We see this constant push for trans visibility. We see this constant push for women to be insulted. We see all of this happening over and over and over again. This was a series that went on for years and we could not escape it. Could you blame us for being angry? No. But at the same time, we did too much. It makes me really realize sometimes we just have to ignore it because Dylan would not have been the star that Dylan became if it wasn't for the right being enraged. We took the bait. And this is why I often say with things, whether it's racial, whether it's gender, whether it's just the woke pride stuff, regardless of what it is, we have to do a better job of not always taking the bait. It is not always worth taking the bait because a lot of the times the biggest PR that you can possibly get is from the other side being angry at you. Okay, that is the reality. Shout out to the CEO of PragerU, Marissa Strike. Go ahead and click the link in the description to go to PragerU.com. Check out Real Talk and make sure you subscribe through my link. But, you know, Marissa Strike, she talks about this often. One of the biggest PR moments for PragerU was this hit piece that came out about us. I believe it was the Hollywood Reporter or somebody put out this big hit piece on us that was supposed to be a nice press release, but they switched up on us. But the hatred and the unfair, biased perspective that they put on us, it actually gave us so much good press. It gave us good publicity because people were like, oh, well, if they hate you, then we probably would love you because we hate them. The enemy of your enemy is your friend sometimes. So you really have to look at the bigger picture of what is worth talking about, what is worth entertaining, and what is worth just outright ignoring. But when it comes to Dylan, I try to humanize Dylan because at the end of the day, Dylan is a human. Super chat from Mr. Rodriguez. Please just keep going, or please just keep doing what you're doing, Xavier. Oh, super non-friendo. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate you for supporting the show. Send in those super chats because we got to keep the rent paid. These lights are very bright and the electricity bill is high. So I thank you guys and make sure you get your friends to subscribe because we do not want this show to flop. Okay, we need to keep the cousins coming to the conversation. But when it comes to Dylan Mulvaney, just on a human being level, I think it's always worth giving people a little bit of grace, because Dylan became a monster as far as like the entity of Dylan Mulvaney, not Dylan as an individual necessarily, but the entity of Dylan Mulvaney became a monster because of how much we inflated that entire thing. And the support for Dylan became so huge because of all of the backing we put into going against that type of narrative, to the point where, I was going to play it, but I'm not going to play it. Matt Walsh actually made the video to end all videos about Dylan Mulvaney. And it was one of those videos that was so harsh. It was so harsh. Could I disagree with pretty much anything Matt said in it? No. But it was one of those videos that basically just like absolutely read Dylan for filth. And it was after the Bud Light scandal, and it basically was just basically calling Dylan a disappointment of a human being when you summarize it all. And that video actually, like, it hurt me. Like, it was one of those things like, yikes. Like, the truth really, really hurts. But, that's how one thing about Matt Walsh, he's going to call it exactly how he sees it in 8K. And the video, if you go look it up, I'm sure you can find it easily on Twitter. It was brutal. It was brutally honest truth about all things. Should I play it, Miss Rodriguez?
I mean, if it's got some good stuff in it, why not?
We can play a little bit of it. We'll play a little bit of it.
You just tell me when you'd like to pause it, and we'll go from there.
Okay, because it literally, the video makes me cringe, because if somebody said this about me, y'all talk about me every day. I got thick skin. But it was just one of those moments, just like, ugh. But you can go ahead and play it, Jill. Why not?
Day
I tease it too much.
335 of being a girl, and I wanted to go on record to say that this might be the hottest I've ever looked and will ever look in my lifetime. And I'm making this video so that in thousands of years, there will be evidence. Is it the dress? It could be the dress.
Dylan does have good fashion. I'll always give Dylan that.
Or is it the hair? Because I think it's the extensions. And when I have extensions in, I don't know my name. I don't know where I live. I just know that I love these. And I know that I look like I could steal a husband, but I want to promise you, look me in the eyes. I want to promise you that I would never do that to you. Okay, I am a girl's girl.
I ain't gonna lie, this video was funny.
And I love ya. Woo! But seriously, this is good, right? Okay. Love you, okay.
Oh, I can't even watch.
Listen, I know I don't have a reputation for being necessarily the kindest or gentlest person in the world, especially when dealing with people like this. The truth, though, is that I am a gentle soul at heart, I think. And also I do feel pity, or I can feel pity for some of these people. And so I wouldn't usually say what I'm about to say, at least not as directly as I'm going to say it. But Dylan Mulvaney is intentionally degrading women every time he does this woman face minstrel show routine. He is insulting and demeaning them and doing it on purpose and profiting off of it, and he doesn't care. And since I have 2 daughters and a wife, I take this kind of thing personally, which is why I have to say to Dylan, if that is the most attractive you will ever look, then I don't even want to imagine what you'll look like when you're at your ugliest. You do not pass as an attractive woman or as a woman at all, even with 50 pounds of makeup and plastic surgery and clever lighting tricks. Even then, you still cannot escape what you really are and what you will always be. You have successfully shed whatever parts of you were masculine, perhaps, at least on the surface. Nobody would ever describe you as masculine or manly, so you've got that going. But your femininity quotient has not increased at a rate commensurate with the loss of your masculinity. You may not be masculine, but you also aren't feminine. Instead, you are weird and artificial. You are manufactured and lifeless. You are unearthly and eerie. You are like some kind of human deep fake. That's what you are. You are a man deprived of all the best qualities of men, but without any of the best qualities of women. Even your personality is contrived. Everything about you is fake. Nothing about you rings true. Nobody buys the act. You'll never be accepted as a woman by anyone, never by anyone. Even the people who pretend to accept you as a woman are only pretending because they're afraid of being lectured if they don't, or because they want to use you as a platform to virtue signal. But everyone who looks at you will see something pitiable and bizarre, something utterly unfeminine in every way. You will never be able to actually have the identity that you're trying to appropriate, nor will you ever be able to fully escape the identity that you're fleeing. The best you can hope for is some kind of limbo, the worst of all worlds. And yet, even in that limbo state, you will still be a man. just not one that any of us can respect or take seriously. But other than that, champ, you're doing great.
Ciao. That was one of the nastiest reads I have ever heard in my life. If somebody called me unearthly and like elaborated about how I am an eerie figure, look, do I disagree with anything that Matt said? Pretty much no. It's just, oh, that was a nasty read. That hurt me. That that was brutal. I mean, I need to stop arguing with Matt Walsh on Twitter, chat, because I'm not trying to get one of them reads one day, because that was crazy. That was like more than a church lady read. Like, that was brutal. That if Dylan didn't have a disappointed father, basically does now with that Matt Walsh situation, or with that read. But all of that to say, when it is all said and done, you know, it's kind of true, but Dylan Mulvaney is a human being. So I'm not trying to make this into just like a whole video attacking Dylan. I just think it's worth examining how the phenomena of Dylan Mulvaney, the era of Dylan Mulvaney, in retrospect, I think it was as crazy as we remember it being. I think it was as toxic as we remember it being. But I also think that the right has to take some accountability for that, myself included, because we ultimately were the reason that Dylan Mulvaney was so overexposed. And Dylan has spoken out, you know, whether it's about the Bud Light campaign or various things. Dylan has made it clear that they went through some mental health issues, already was going through some mental health issues. But, you know, on a serious note, like everything that happened, all the backlash that happened did have Dylan Mulvaney going to a mental health facility, did have Dylan having to take time off the internet, having to really just like breathe. And there's one thing I never want to see people do, especially due to internet backlash, it's to unalive themselves. And I am glad that Dylan, on a human level, had the strength to get through the backlash, because I've dealt with a lot of backlash in my career. I cannot imagine what it felt like to be Dylan during the Bud Light backlash and during the height of all the hatred that was coming their way. And, you know, again, on a human level, I wish Dylan the best, but I also hope that Dylan gets one, more clarity, and two, stops degrading the people that they are claiming to represent. Because if you want anyone to respect you, you have to respect yourself. And if you're going to respect yourself, you have to respect the truth. That's what it comes down to. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for tuning in, cousins. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for sending in your super chats. Subscribe on my personal YouTube if you haven't already. Go to the description, click the link in the bio, subscribe to PragerU.com. There's all types of great content that you need to see, and including about Dylan Mulvaney. I'll see you on Thursday.